What is up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of After Ultra Review. In this series, we are only talking about gear and shoes and nutrition, or whatever it may be that we actually wore during or used during an ultra marathon race or during a training run that is above 26.2 miles. We just set up these reviews like this just because, it's during those deep miles is when you can really understand the quirks or the little things in the shoes or gear that can really, make or break your race. I mean, just look at what happened in the Grindstone 100. I didn't take those Lone Peaks out for an ultra length distance, and around mile 40, my feet just absolutely got blistery. And I would have known that if I would have tested them out a little bit better. So it's those little quirks that can really save you or break you during these races. So today we're going to be talking about Altra FWD Experience. Now, these are kind of controversial, if you want to say controversial, shoes for Ultra. It's their first shoe that actually has a drop. Ultra is known to have that wide toe box and zero drop shoes. That's actually why I run in Ultras for the most part. Basically, when I got out of the military, I was running in minimalist shoes. The Merrell Trail gloves is the ones that I actually wore for my first 100 miler. That was the Grindstone 100, the first Grindstone 100. And then when I needed more protection, I moved into Ultras so then I could get a little bit more cushioning, but with that wide toe box and zero drop. So Ultra just came out with their first 4mm stack or 4mm drop shoe. It is 28mm in the front and then 32mm in the back. So it's a very minimal drop, but you can kind of feel it. I mean, it does have that really rocker motion. We'll talk a little bit more about that with actually in the usability portion of this review. We're not going to get too technical with these reviews. This is more about me sharing my experience with the shoes and maybe some of the little quirks that I've noticed with these Ultra FWDs. So let's jump right into our first category. Our first category is fit and feel for the Ultra FWD Experience. Now, this shoe, it feels awesome. Honestly, when I put it on, it kind of sucked to my feet and it felt like a really tight, nice fit that you want in an everyday trainer. Not like it's cramping your style or it doesn't feel too narrow. Personally, to me, I mean, a lot of Ultra people have very specific feet. So there is a lot, like every single time they come out with a shoe, there's always complaints. It's like always too wide or, oh, Ultra lost their way or blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's really up to your foot style and the last that you actually chose. I mean, Ultra has 3 different lasses. There's like a super narrow one, their slim one, a standard one, and then there's like a really wide one, which is like their OG one. I'm in that Goldilocks position where I'm like right in the middle. So this middle last works really well for my feet. This engineered mesh is not too stretchy, so your feet don't feel like they're sliding around if you hit a rock or if you twist your ankle a little bit, you're not kind of like sliding off the base of the shoe or anything like that. It just feels like a really sturdy shoe. It's pretty flexible. And the best part about this shoe are honestly what I feel like they should put in every single one of their shoes, especially the trail shoes, are these little bump outs in the heel cup. They have little bump outs that just kind of lock your heel in perfectly. At least for my feet, they lock it in freaking perfectly. I have a very like triangle shaped shoe, almost like a reverse triangle. So my heel is very skinny and then my toe box goes just like splays out. So these little bump outs inside really help lock down your heel, but then allow your actual toes to spread out properly. Like everybody wants them to spread out that are actually wearing Ultra shoes and that toe box style shoe. They feel pretty comfortable that you can just throw them on for pretty much any distance level run. I mean, I ran in them in shorter runs, shorter recovery runs, and I ended up running the full 100K in one pair of shoes. I never switched them during that whole 100K, and I never had any issues or any complaints with the shoe. So the one problem that I actually noticed for the FWDs is the actual tongue. And it's only on my right foot. This might be, once again, a Wayne problem, but the tongue just like cuts into my ankle on the inside of my leg. That inside ankle, I don't even, how would you say that? The inside ankle of my right foot, it just gets the shit rubbed out of it because of this tongue. For my left foot, it's perfectly fine, perfectly padded, feels amazing. I don't know what the heck is going on, but I had 2 pairs and it was the same issue. What I had to actually do to resolve that is just pull the tongue out as far as possible, and then I just shifted it to the inside and then tied it down really tight, and that seemed to fix the issue. I'm not sure what it is, or if it's just my ankles are freaking weird or fat, if I have slight cankles or something, but that seems to be the only issue that I felt with the Forward Ultras. That heel lockdown, you know, how light it is. This is only 240 grams, so it's way lighter than the Torin and even lighter than the Escalantes. So it's a very light shoe. It's sucked to your feet. It has a really good heel lockdown. It's perfectly wide for my feet and it's perfectly narrow for my heel. So for fit and feel, man, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It would have got almost like a 9.5 or a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for this weird little tongue issue. But man, fit and feel, I love these shoes. It's a great shoe. It's a comfy shoe. It's a great everyday trainer. Let's move right into our second category, and that's usability. So I'll base most of the usability category off of the Freight Train 100K and the lead up to that. I mean, I ran in these in the rain. I ran in these in pavement, groom trails, and crushed gravel trails, and they performed just fine. You know, I got enough grip on the trails. They're light enough to run on the road, and they're just an overall quality, I would say an overall quality everyday trainer. I mean, it's not going to be shooting you forward like if you have a carbon plate, or if you're trying to run like a fast like marathon pace, but it's just a comfy shoe. Like, it's a comfy everyday trainer. If you think about an everyday trainer, it's this shoe. I mean, I don't understand why a lot of people give this shoe a lot of heat, and I really think it's just because it doesn't stand out anywhere, but it doesn't lack anywhere. So it's that perfect middle ground of just like, you know, I'm going to throw these shoes on and do a couple miles. I'm going to throw these shoes on and, you know, run a long run. I'm going to throw these shoes on and run a freaking 100K. And I'm not going to expect that much out of them. I don't expect them to launch me down the trail or have super Spider-Man grip or anything like that. It's just a shoe that's going to be on your foot to give you some protection. The one thing about the Forwards is you actually can feel that rocker that a lot of the Ultra shoes don't have that feeling for, just because of course there's 0 drop. So you do feel like you have that slight rocking motion that will help you propel yourself a little bit forward, or you actually get that feel of the rocker in the shoe. So for usability, you know, once again, I use it on pavement. I use it on trails. I use it on crushed gravel trails. I use it for a full 100K and recovery runs and everything. So for usability, opposed from the problem with the tongue that I talked about for fit and feel, I mean, I never really ran into any issues with like the actual function of the shoe. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's a good shoe. It's a comfy shoe. It's a regular everyday trainer that, you know, has no thrills, no frills, no popping champagne or whatever. And it's not a piece of shit that cuts the shit out of your foot. So for usability, let's give it a 9 out of 10. Another thing with these shoes, I did do a lot of training in like wet weather, like when it was raining, and then in the 100K, it was very foggy and it started raining a little bit during that race. And I had no problems with slippage on pavement and on the trail. I had no problem with actual drainage of the shoe. It's so light that basically, I mean, this engineered mesh just kind of squirts out all the water. So I didn't really have any problem with like waterlogged feet or anything like that. I mean, they're not going to help you out if it gets really cold out, but if you're running, your feet won't get cold. I mean, that's kind of a blanket statement to say, but hey, man, I never really had any issues with wet conditions with these shoes. So let's jump right into our last category, and that's durability. And with Ultra, that has always been like a little stab in the side for Ultra is their durability of their shoes. Not their trail shoes. Their trail shoes are pretty awesome. I've worn those shoes 500 miles plus, but for the road shoes, I've always destroyed them. They probably get destroyed around 200 to 300 miles, usually more around like the 250 mile range. And it's the same thing with the Ultra Forwards. I beat the shit out of these shoes. You know, I ran in them in 100K. And then for the lead up for that 100K, I probably had about 200 to 300 miles in this one pair of shoes. And it's this pair of shoes that I'm holding right now, or this pair of shoes that I'm actually showing right now. This one has about 300 miles in it. It does have some wear and tear, but not as bad as some of Ultra's other shoes. I mean, the Vanish Tempos that I have up there, I absolutely destroyed, and they got freaking mauled. Probably by 250 miles or 300 miles, I actually started going into the outer and out of the actual traction portion of the outer of the shoes. So they seem to be a little bit more robust than some of the Ultra shoes. But other than the outsole, I don't really see any issues with this shoe and durability. There's no separation from the outsole to the upper. There's no fraying in the laces. There's a little bit of fraying inside on the top portion of the shoe, but that's because I tie my shoes really tight with a runner's knot. I mean, the heel cup is fine. The heel cup is fine. There's no separation of any plastics or logos or anything like that. So for durability, I'm going to have to give it a little bit lower score just because I do pretty much destroy them within 300 miles. I'm going to give them about an 8.5 out of 10. I did run a full 100K in these shoes and didn't change them once. They didn't fall apart. They weren't just like hanging off my feet at the end of the race. They lasted pretty well. This pair of shoes, this pair of Ultras are the ones I actually wore during the 100K, and you can still see a lot of the traction at the bottom of the shoe. There's no fraying, there's no fraying, there's no cuts, there's no anything. And we ran through fog, we ran through gravel, we ran through trails, we ran through pavement. We ran through quite a lot of different terrain for 64 miles straight. And I think it was 11 hours of constant pounding, and they're absolutely fine. I'm going to wash these off, and then I'm just going to try to grind them to the ground like the other pair of shoes that I got. So there you have it. The Ultra FWD Experience is getting a 26.5 out of 30. It might be kind of a biased score just because I was expecting so little of this shoe, but it's an all right shoe. It's a comfy everyday trainer that won't let you down. You know, you don't expect a lot from it. It's not going to give you a lot. It's just a shoe that you can throw on and you can do whatever you want in it. I mean, I've worn it on multiple different trails, multiple different surfaces, done multiple different workouts on it. And it's just a shoe that will be there with you. And it has that wide toe box. It has a narrow heel cup. So it just fits my fit. It just fits my foot really well. And, you know, I'll use it again for an everyday trainer. Hopefully now that I'm actually breaking into the millimeter drops or the drop shoes, I can kind of get my body ready and try out a little bit more different shoes and give you guys a little bit more reviews on different brands. But for this first little test for the 4 millimeter drop, yeah, I like them. They're all right. They're comfy. Don't expect a lot. You're not going to get a lot. It's something that you can wear every day. And these shoes are just consistently comfy. These shoes are consistently always there, and they can perform for you, whatever the surface is, whatever the distance is. They'll just be there, and they'll be like, hey, we're the no frill guy. We'll carry ourselves with you during whatever you're trying to do. So once again, the FWD Ultras, it's an all right everyday trainer shoe. Always make sure that you're testing out your gear. And of course, chip away, become an average savage, get out there, test your gear, put your gear like yourself through the motherfucking ringer. Do not be afraid of fear. Run towards it, because that fear is what you're going to turn into fucking power. So conquer your fear, be consistent, chip away, become an average savage. Let's go and let's get it.